generally have some kind of plan and some idea of how to use them, unlike the Packers.
The one free agent that the Patriots grabbed in recent memory that I knew from the get-go was a terrible idea. Remember Scott Chandler?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's no way you thought Scott Chandler was going to be a bad idea.
100% I did. 100%. You never want to pick up free agent players who only have good games against your team. I mean,
Fair.
what do you think? That's just it's gonna translate elsewhere. Like all of a sudden, you're just gonna be like, all right, well, if I don't do it against this team, watch me go off. Like,
Well,
are we live now?
We're live on YouTube.
We are.
Oh,
cool.
recording.
Very cool.
Record to the cloud. Wow. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Garbage Time. It is I, James, and I am joined today by Drew. Drew, how are you?
Howdy, y'all.
And a special guest. He is a Patriots fan. He's been on the show before when it was the Bodacast throwback, and he's a vegetarian. It's Broccoli Rob.
What's going on?
Not happy to be here, Rob. Nothing.
No, I'm really glad you introduced me as Broccoli Rob and not the other like 15 nicknames that I've somehow acquired over the past month.
Mid-range.
Yeah.
I figured it tied in with the vegetarian thing.
I love it, dude. Consistency is key.
That's what I'm all about, is consistency. I'm known as the most consistent, inconsistent person in the world.
I believe it.
I don't believe it. So on today's episode, we have some football news as we usually do. We've got Carolina, the Detroit Lions. I don't know why I wrote Carolina and then the Lions, but the Panthers, the Lions, the Eagles, and then the Falcons. But mostly, we got some fat news to get through because it was a big time trade. I thought somebody was going to have something to say about that. I'm not going to lie to you. You guys kind of left me hanging there.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's all right. No, it's fine. It's all right. I'll just say whatever, guys. Don't worry about it. Fuck off. Wow. Brutal. So speaking of Atlanta, they are actually in talks. They are willing to trade away from that 4th overall pick. Now, Drew, Rob, how do you feel about this before we get into Atlanta?
Well, I mean, I think it makes sense. I don't necessarily think that taking a first-round quarterback is the way to go for Atlanta this year, purely based on Matt Ryan's contract and the money that it would cost against the cap to keep that or to cut that man in one of the next 2 years. So I think Matt Ryan's probably the guy for the next 2 years. Maybe they go out and get someone next year. I don't know if they want to have someone sit and wait for 2 years, but we'll see how it goes. But it doesn't look like they're trying to make a push for any of those top QBs. It's going to be interesting.
See, I sit on the other end where I think it's really foolish. If your whole goal of your franchise is to really find, that quarterback, and at 36 years old, I think, we can all agree that Matt Ryan's probably not going to be that guy anymore. Big stat heavy quarterback, right? Really good year, a couple of years back. The problem is every year you're always going to try to look for that quarterback. Not every draft, however, is going to produce a wealth of talent. In this draft, we have just a crazy amount of quarterbacks who I think any of them would fit on a team. If I'm the GM in Atlanta, I don't think I would pass up on this opportunity to maybe get some guy and sit him for a year or two. I mean, Matt Ryan's not a bad quarterback to have a backup sit behind and watch, how he goes through his reads and his progressions. I don't know. I would keep the 4th and maybe try to go for a quarterback if I was him.
Yeah, I don't think Matt Ryan's the worst quarterback in the world to learn from by any means. I mean, I think personally, when you look at drafting a quarterback in the 1st round, and we're going to talk about this with a couple teams, but you have to look at, is this guy better? Or do I think this guy is better than who we currently have? Simple as that, right? It's not like you're trying to progress the position. There's one quarterback on the team. So if you look at assuming Trey Lance and Mac Jones, do you really think that they are better than Matt Ryan? Because I'd say no.
I think that that's kind of fundamentally flawed. I think that the only reason that Matt Ryan is around for the length of time that he's still gonna be around on that team is the contract situation. So I don't think that they have to go out there and say, hey, is this guy better than Matt Ryan? They have to go out there and say, is this a guy that we can work with? And is this the guy that we want to be here after Matt Ryan? Because he's going to be there for 2 more years.
I totally agree. It's not, you're right. It's not saying, because then I think the Dolphins did this a lot with, made the mistake with Tua. It's not that, do we need somebody right now to bench Matt Ryan? It's, do you think there's somebody in that draft who you feel comfortable having on your team, but also saying, listen, I can't miss up on the opportunity to get this guy. Because let's say 2 years down the line, right, the contract's over, it's time to go get that new quarterback. And that draft is just putrid, right? Like, you're just not in a position. Mm-hmm. I don't see a problem with using that 4th pick to get a guy like Trey or Mac. I think that's worth it, and have him sit, because you're right. I mean, Matt Ryan's going to be that quarterback for another 2 years. And again, he's not a bad quarterback. No, he can throw the ball really well. He's definitely somebody who, if he was a free agent and the Patriots got him years, right now, I'd be like, cool. I have no complaints.
Yeah, 100%. He's always been solid down there, like you said, big stat guy, and it's just time up. The great career down there. They just got to figure out how to move on. Obviously, that can't happen for a couple of years due to the money situation, but I don't think moving back in this draft is the way to go. Like you said, I think that there's too much quarterback talent. I think having your pick of the remaining quarterbacks after Trevor Lawrence and probably Zach Wilson are gone, you have the option between Justin Fields and Matt Wilson and Trey Lance. So you want to give your franchise the best opportunity to succeed after Matt Ryan. So I think that they have to. I think they have to stick in there and pick a guy and work with him for 2 years, because that window is shutting rapidly.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll get more to that when we talk about Atlanta. I don't want to get too deep into it right now. But there's a lot of different pathways they could go. And personally, I think I have the right one, but that's just because I'm arrogant. Next up on the news, an update on the Deshaun Watson situation. He has lost endorsements with both Beats and Nike after the first masseuse has come forward.
This has been so awful to hear, right, on so many levels. I was, as you and James and I have talked, I was a huge fan of Deshaun Watson's game, from a collegiate level and going to the NFL. So this is there's just so much here, right? And all of a sudden you watch endorsements dropping in and out. It's just so much news has come out about this in the past, 2-3 weeks?
Yeah, if even.
I thought there was more to it there. I don't know what happened.
No, I
Thank you for making it.
Just kind of taking all of that news in right as it comes out.
Oh yeah, I mean, it sucks to see because of all the things we've already talked about. Where you see Deshaun Watson, what was the one thing he said about women in his pro day interview? And it was respect, and his dap up high five he had with his girlfriend at the sidelines during his time at Clemson. It sucks to see because you have that painted picture of him being this great guy, but it shows we really don't know who these athletes are.
No.
It sucks. It sucks.
No, you're totally right. There's, it's sometimes it can be so difficult to know that, athletes are more than just what you watch in your TV for, an hour or two a day, right, on that game. They go on. They're not just, they're not like robots. They don't just go sit back and recharge and get ready for the next game. So there are personas you would think that, these athletes put on during games that probably don't reflect who they really are.
Yeah. And I mean, the vast majority of the time that you're hearing from athletes and about athletes, it's in a public view. It's them talking to reporters, to the media. They're prepared to speak to who they're speaking to. It's not getting into their personal lives and having a friendly conversation with a buddy or something. It's not candid stuff. So it's crazy how much goes on behind, like you said, that scene. I feel like it's almost like when we were all little kids in elementary school and we all thought our teachers just went into the coat room when school was over and popped back out in the morning to greet us. Never really thought of teachers having a life, and I feel like athletes kind of are the same way.
next bit of news. The Bears have been answering calls, and apparently it's been escalating, but they are in talks to trade Anthony Miller. So, Drew, as someone who has to see the Bears twice a year, I want to hear first what your thoughts are on what this means within the organization.
I mean, I don't necessarily know what it means from the top down. I mean, what it looks like is they're trying to sell off parts of their team that aren't really solid enough to do so. I don't know what Anthony Miller feels about his situation in Chicago. But I mean, he's been a solid player, always has been a great 2-3 receiver. I would love to not see him on that team because I think he does make that offense better as it stands. So I don't really understand the thought process there, but Chicago.
Well, for me, first and foremost, that says, like, that speaks volumes about how much faith they have in Mooney. Right?
Fair.
And the second underlying text that I pulled out today and I posted is I think this says something about how they have convinced A-Rob that stuff is changing in Chicago. Right? Because, like, why would you ship out more weapons that could potentially get him open? Even if you expect him only to stay for the year, like, I think there's something in the works there where they think they can get Allen Robinson for a long-term contract or a longer-term contract.
I don't see how that really plays into a decision to get rid of Anthony Miller here and now.
Because, I mean, in my point of view, at least, it's saying, like, okay, we don't need this extra guy because we have you. And I know you're only here for 1 year right now. We're going to keep stringing you along and ruining your career.
You know what, Alan? You know how much faith we have in you? We're going to trade our entire team away. We're going to let you go out there on your own and do this.
Tell me that.
Well, it's also important, you know, that as much as you can, you know, there are some important, like, highlights. Like, this is obviously, like, a cap space move. Right. But if you guys remember, in the playoffs, didn't he, like, get into an altercation?
There might not have been him in the playoffs, but he did get an altercation with what's his face in the Saints.
Yeah.
Earlier here.
So, I mean, it might have nothing to do with Allen Robinson. It really could just be like, listen, we have to, you know, we gotta get under the cap space. You know, you might not be performing the way we want. You know, whatever. Like, let's just decide to part ways here. If I'm Allen Robinson, I sign no extension to play in Chicago. I should be looking outside right now. Like, just look away, my man. Just go away. Find a better team, dude.
Allen Robinson, would you rather play for the CFL or the Bears?
The question would be like, well, it depends. Is the CFL going right now? Because I can be there.
I'm telling you.
Yeah. I'm super curious as to see how Andy Dalton and Allen Robinson are going to do. Andy Dalton to me has always been kind of one of those, like, odd quarterbacks where you really just, like, it. You want to look at it and be like, oh, Andy Dalton, he's not terrible though. I mean, again, it's like Matt Ryan. Like, there are worse quarterbacks you could have on your team besides Andy Dalton.
Yeah, I think
smaller list than besides Matt Ryan, but still.
I think that he's definitely a little bit higher on the QB tier list than Matt Ryan, but I've never looked at Andy Dalton and, you know, said he's a bad quarterback, because he's not. He's definitely serviceable. He's a veteran with lots of experience starting. He's held that job in Cincinnati for a long time now. That's a lot to do with the organization just being terrible, but he still held a starting job in the NFL for the better part of a decade. And now he's going to a team that seriously needs some help, has been playing around with quarterbacks, and none of which had really had solid starting experience. So I think it offers a fresh start for Chicago. I get the cap space thing, but I'd want to keep as many weapons there for him as he can and just figure out who he jives with. So I don't know. Yeah. We'll see how it affects the team.
Andy Dalton's the 98 Toyota Corolla of quarterbacks.
Reliable, consistent, not flashy, will never break down.
Exactly.
until he gets hit in the head.
Yeah. But other than that, I just inserted ham into my mouth and it came back out because I just realized I had to talk. He's not going to do anything big for you, but I mean, he's the in-between car, right? They're clearly drafting someone in a round that they have faith in. It's not the first round, but they have faith a round. Big if true, they're going to draft a quarterback. And Andy Dalton's the stepping stone to this next guy. And honestly, not a bad stepping stone. Like you've said, he gets a lot of flack for a lot of his play, but he was really a shining part of a really awful Bengals team for so long.
Yeah. I mean, you know what's an important fact is that, especially when it came to the Bengals, is he always had solid seasons. I mean, for the most part, threw for 3,500 yards a season or more. I mean, he was decently consistent. Hell, he didn't even have a bad year last year in Dallas, as far as what your expectations were and who you were throwing the ball to. But yeah, as far as a stepping stone goes, Andy Dalton is not a I mean, I don't think I'd want to look at him, as a 2 or 3 year bridge guy, draft somebody and then have that rookie learn under. But if there's somebody that you think maybe can get to that level professionally where they only need a year, Andy Dalton is not a terrible 1 year bridge quarterback. Especially, you're right, if the whole goal of the Bengals is to long-term sign Allen Robinson, I don't see a problem with them having Andy Dalton. I'm sure the Chicago fans have a problem with having Andy Dalton, but I think it's not a bad play.
No.
Yeah, I agree.
So let's get to what has arguably been the biggest news of the week. Sam Darnold finally moves on. The Jets trade him away. In return, they get a 6th round this year and a 2nd and a 4th for 2022. Personally, it's way more than I thought they would get for Sam Darnold. I was putting his ceiling at a 2nd rounder. I did not think they would get 3 picks out of Sam Darnold, but I'm shocked and pleased they did. This will be the first time he's going into a system that has a good line, weapons, a true wide receiver one who, depending on who you look at as the wide receiver one, he's worked with, and an offensive-minded offensive coordinator that's actually good in Joe Brady.
Also, let's not skip over probably one of the most exciting running backs in the game.
Oh,
Christian McCaffrey can make any quarterback look good. Listen, Sam, I've been following the story. I love it. I think it's awesome. I think it's also really fascinating because Sam Darnold is the ultimate theoretical great quarterback. Everybody who's talked to Sam Darnold is like, man, this guy could be so good. He's going to be so good one day, next year, next week, tomorrow, so good. And then he's never good the day of. And yeah, you could put about 99% of that on whatever the Jets mess is. But at a certain point, I remember sitting there going, this is a quarterback who's talked about being really good for a guy who I've seen throw some really average stuff. And I'm actually curious to see if he and Robbie Anderson work in this offense. I know they did pretty well together 2 years ago. Can we not skip on the fact that I feel horrible for Teddy Bridgewater? I mean, are you kidding me? The guy cannot catch a break.
No, I think this is essentially stamped him as a backup, but Drew, go ahead.
I was pretty much going to say the same thing. He's just kind of fallen into that hole of obscurity, which really sucks because it's not entirely his fault. That play last year was the result of just a generally inconsistent offense. That you can't pin that all on him. He made some really nice plays and showed that he was still capable of moving the ball with his legs when he had to. I think that for what was ultimately the first role after his audition in New Orleans, he kind of got screwed. He didn't get to play his full year, really, and he didn't have Christian McCaffrey. So, like you said, that in itself changes an entire team. So Teddy Bridgewater, without the team's best weapon, got judged a little unfairly. So
completely agree. So
with that, I have a mouthful of ham.
That offends me as a vegetarian.
It should. Let's talk about Carolina in this NFL draft, right? Oh my God, that was so hard to swallow. I don't know why. They're sitting with the 8th overall pick. They have the new quarterback in Darnold, right? They've already locked in his option, so they at least have 2 years of Darnold. Now, with the Teddy Bridgewater news, do you think they actually end up there with that news and us already talking about Teddy? Do you think they end up shipping him out? Or do you think he just ends up staying there and dying?
I think they probably should move on. I mean, I know they paid a decent chunk of money for him, so probably best to just go find someone cheaper and get what you can asset wise for Teddy B. It's maybe you can get half of what you gave up to Darnold at least. It's not a terrible situation to be in. You just have to figure out what you want to do in terms of having that backup quarterback.
Right.
See, I would go the opposite. If I'm the Panthers right now, I keep Teddy Bridgewater. Right, I keep Teddy Bridgewater through training camp because again, like they gave away 3 picks, and again, can't stress enough for a theoretically good quarterback, a young guy who still has is still in that window to learn and progress. But there's a super real chance that what he was with the Jets is exactly what he's going to be with the Panthers. Right? I mean, it's not guaranteed that he's going to come right into this offense and he's going to get it and he's going to throw for 4,000 yards and he's going to have a ratio, touchdown to interception that's really good. You hope that's the case. A lot of experts expect that to be the case. But, the rule you got to subscribe to, right? Any given Sunday. There's a super real chance he gets there and he's average. So with that in mind, I think you keep Teddy Bridgewater. Because even without Christian McCaffrey, he threw for like 3,500 yards, like 15 touchdowns. Again, not terrible stats, and you're about to have a great running back. No rush to get rid of Teddy right now. I can't even imagine they would get a lot going for it. So just keep him, right? Keep him, and then maybe beginning of the season, see what you can do there. But I wouldn't put all my eggs in the basket of Sam Darnold so blindly as to be like, I don't even need a backup like Teddy. Nah, Sammy's bringing me to the promised land.
All right. I'm not saying go walk down the streets of Raleigh and find the first person on the street and sign him. Go out and find a decent backup. But I feel like
you have a decent backup. You have PJ Walker.
All right, fine. Even if you want to roll with PJ Walker, my main point, I just think Teddy Bridgewater is just too expensive to be sitting on the bench waiting for Darnold to either fuck up or get hurt.
Exactly. So trade him out, recuperate some of those picks, and friggin' PJ and Sam Darnold is your quarterback room. Stellar.
Man.
What a legendary situation for them. So I've already said this will be the first time he has a true wide receiver one, a line, some weapons. The reunion with Anderson will be interesting to see how that actually plays out because obviously Robbie Anderson balled out last year. So we're going to see. Anyway. We're going to see if that continues with Sam Darnold under center. Now, we've talked about these names a lot bouncing around kind of the top 10. But the only 2 options I see for them at 8, and I've sold myself on one, as Drew knows via text. But I think Kyle Pitts stepping into that system and is adding another lethal weapon on offense because the defense is good. The defense is just young. So as much as I would want the Micah Parsons slide the land there, I think Kyle Pitts stepping in, filling in, being the new Greg Olsen, and kind of just keeping that awesome tight end move going forward, especially with Joe Brady as the offensive coordinator. We know what he does with tight ends. I think that could do nothing but good things for the entire team. But Drusif?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think if Pitts is there, that's definitely the way to go because we want to give Darnold every chance to succeed, right? You want to bring in a new quarterback, say, here, we're going to go out, we're going to make it a priority to get you people to throw the ball to. We're going to make it a priority to keep you protected. That's going to give him a little bit more confidence going into that system and a little bit, familiarity right away. Just build a good rapport with the new quarterback. So if Kyle Pitts is there, arguably one of the best offensive talents in the draft in recent memory, I don't think you can go wrong with that. That would be a stellar combo for Carolina.
Rob, do you think Kyle Pitts is the answer? Do you think they maybe wait and reach a bit and get someone like Surtain as a cornerback or Micah Parsons as a linebacker?
It's tough to say. I'm very much. If they don't go get a tight end, I'm not as upset if I'm a Panthers fan, right? Tight end would be a like a really nice additional piece. Pitts would be really good. But that being said, you're not so pressed now as to needing Pitts, if you expect your offense to fully come back. So going to get a cornerback, going to get, someone on the line, maybe like a lineman would be great. That would be ideal, especially if your offense is going to go back to that whole, let's have Christian McCaffrey go out for a couple of screen passes. Let's get a true number one loop going. Let's get Robbie going. I think the best way, I've always felt the best way to show a quarterback that you're fully invested is you go out and you get a beefy line, And so while I think Pitts would be a great addition, and Carolina has always, Olsen's a great tight end. And I always thought he was a lot of fun to watch, and he was really smart, which you can't sleep on when you're ever thinking about tight ends, especially if they're supposed to be about blocking and running routes at the same time. If they go out and get a lineman, I would be more hyped than if they got out or if they went out and got Pitts. Protection, I think, is key.
So you're gonna live on the theory that with like a good line, anyone can be a good quarterback?
No, I won't. That is a die on the hill sentence that I am not going to make. But prime example of what a quarterback, what happens to a quarterback without a line. Patrick Mahomes gets steamrolled in the Super Bowl because that poor dude is running 5 football fields worth of yards, and none of them were positive, right? So a line will help. I mean, especially, can't stress enough, Christian McCaffrey benefits from a line for so many reasons, not even just for the route running, but also for, that pass catching. And if you're going to invest so much, 3 draft picks into Sam Darnold, is the question, we need way more weapons for you to throw to, or is the question, we need to build a sustainable line here so that you can maybe get comfortable with what we have? I mean, ideally, you're going to have him for a while. I would say go for lineman. That's just kind of where I'm at.
Fair. And you're playing in that NFC South where Tampa Bay has brought back that whole beastly defense, and you're going to have some trouble keeping Darnold protected against guys like Ndamukong Suh and Levante David and that core there. That's in itself a reason to go get an extra line and just having to deal with them twice a year.
I'm sorry. I'm watching my dog freak out because she can't get on the bed because the basket's in the way, and she's just crying and trying to get our attention. Anyway, yeah, I don't think necessarily reaching for a lineman is a bad idea, right? As much as I love Kyle Pitts, I do think keeping your investment safe is smart. That's just basics, right? That's just basic football. You're going to invest that much in someone.
Also, did the Panthers just get AJ Boye? Did that just happen half an hour ago?
Did I see that? Did that come through?
Yeah, apparently. That's super
cool. Yeah, Panthers come to terms with AJ Boye. That is a super great pick for them. So,
super cool. All right, so now we go heavy into the linemen. You got yourself a stack team.
Yeah. I guess, honestly, I mean, you could even, once again, you go lineman now, you wait tight end, you still have that option. This is a talented draft. And Drew, how many times have I fucking preached that into existence for the entire year?
Many times.
So many goddamn times. But I don't want to talk about Carolina anymore because I'm bored of them. Thanks, Panther fans. You did it. Let's talk about a team in their division, though. Let's talk about the Falcons, right? We already talked about them potentially trading out of that 4 spot. They're living there right now, though. Thank you. Biggest departure in the offseason, probably going to be Todd Gurley leaving on free agency. I think that one kind of hurts, but also that's a player with what we've seen has been the shortest prime of any player I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, the window for where he was dominant came and went so fast. So fast.
Insanely quick.
Yeah, and that was a weird one too. When he went to the Falcons, I had so many questions about that, right? In terms of, are you just replacing him because you kind of want to capture whatever you thought Devontae Freeman was doing. It was always one of those weird signings where it was like, I think the option for him came up and the Falcons were like, yes, big name, let's get him here, and not, hey, is he necessarily going to be somebody who's going to fit into our offense, who's going to help us, get to that next level? Because you can't sit there and tell me, man, the Falcons are so close. If they just had a running back, no, stop. The Falcons need like an entire retooling of their roster.
Right. And I think that really leads well into, the plans for the offseason and just how to go about the situation that they found themselves in. 5 years removed from playing in the Super Bowl, getting their asses kicked in that spectacular fashion, never have recovered from it. Matt Ryan clearly isn't going to be the quarterback to take them to a title. So I think you really just got to play these next 2 years as full-on developmental, stockpile as many good, young, talented dudes as you can, put them together in different combinations, play with it, and come back and make a run at it when you got your guy of the future.
All right. You want to hear my master plan I've cooked up? My James brain fucking sauce cookie. Yeah. So what they're going to do. The Falcons, in my mind, do not need any more offense. Their line is passable. Their receiving core is phenomenal. You don't draft a running back that high unless it's Christian McCaffrey. They trade back to Denver spot, which isn't that far. I think it's only like, I think Denver's sitting at like 5 or 6. I had it written down. I thought I fucked that up. Trade back, get Drew Lock, sit Drew Lock behind Matty Ice. That way you at least have someone young in the cusp that can learn. Then use almost all of your picks on defense, and then more defense. And then a running back at some point, and then more defense.
Okay, I hear you. Rebuttal. You trade you get Teddy Bridgewater. All right. Yeah, you get Teddy Bridgewater. All right. Then you bench Matt Ryan. Somehow convince yourself and another team to trade you. So you get Waddle. And you just switch your entire playbook to deep routes and verticals, and you score like 100 times. But also, Teddy Bridgewater might not be the worst option if you end up foregoing getting a quarterback. What we were talking about earlier, you keep Matty Ice for the next 2 years. You don't have to start him. I mean, yeah, you owe him money, and you can make the argument. You're like, well, why am I paying so much for a backup? Teddy Bridgewater wouldn't be so bad, especially if the Panthers move off from him. You then use the draft to get a receiver, or you know what? They can go get Pitts. When was the last time the Atlanta Falcons had a good tight end outside of Gonzalez, right?
I like Hayden Hurst a lot. I mean, Austin Hooper, too. I wouldn't negate what he did there. But Rob?
No, I'm sorry. I thought you were going to go off on a comparison about Hayden Hurst and Austin Hooper in the whole.
No, I was literally just giving you 2 tight ends that I was.
Yeah, no, okay. 2 tight ends that were good, and this is something I, especially when it comes to Pitts, really when it comes to tight ends in general. Tight ends, to me, there's an expectation when you look at tight ends now that I think can often be, we'll say, unfair of what the tight end position, really of what you expect people at the tight end position to do, ignoring Gronk and Travis Kelce and Antonio Gates, put up those kind of numbers for longevity. But tight end special talents is so far and few between that you don't need to rush out and get a premium one, right? I mean, that's I always thought drafting a tight end in the second round was the best place to draft a tight end, right? So you don't even need your first round pick to be anything for that. But if you can't get a quarterback, load up on weapons for Matty Ice for the next 2 years. No harm there, especially if the Falcons are leaning into this whole let's see what the draft holds later. As far as quarterback goes, then go out and get a premium receiver talent, right? You only have X amount of years left. With Matty Ice anyways, just lean into full offense. and do what they did to get to the Super Bowl back in 2016. Just win games 45-38, 45-42. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know if I'm necessarily sold on that, but yeah. Drew, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, same boat. I think I would be pretty set on my plan of just kind of throwing these 2 years down the drain because they've refused to do that the past 4 or 5 years. And that's really what the team and organization needed. They need to just kind of flush everything out and start over. And I think that these 2 years where you're kind of locked into having Matt Ryan on the team are a great period of time to do that.
All right. Beyond that, looking at their entire roster, like I said already, wide receiver is not an issue. Running back is kind of a question mark. We don't really know where they're going to go with that. Line help, and then defense. That pretty much sum everything up.
Fair.
Yeah, as usual with the Falcons, they need way more help than they have potential answers to get. You know what I mean?
Exactly,
Yeah.
which is why I think you need to start answering these questions on a longer term basis, not just trying to throw some flex tape over the wounds and call it a day and say, hey, we tried. I think you need to try a little bit harder and make this a multi-year development.
Don't you think that that's so hard to do if you're trying to convince a player, be like, hey, listen, like we need you to hang on for the bridge years. That's so tricky to do. It's hard to convince athletes to tell them like, hey, come here for a year or two, stick around, something great's going to happen. Because they operate under the fact that like the rebuild will be like year 3, we got it. It's not the case. When Matty Ice leaves, it'll be like the rebuilding year again. So I like what you guys are saying in terms of like count the years as a wash, load up on like defense. But at that point, you just kind of have to throw a bunch of darts at the board and hope something hits. Or start drafting people, right? You can't commit to free agency signings. Stay away from trades if it looks like you're trying to trade for the big name. No, I mean, you got to commit to just draft, James, much like you were saying, because, it's very much in the Allen Robinson, situation where you'd be like, hey, man, it's going to be great. We just need you to hang around for like 3 years. And then we really got something here, which is just so frustrating, I'm sure, for athletes to be a part of.
I agree. They should trade for Allen Robinson. That's what they need. Honestly, I think, Rob, I think you got it. I think they need another top-tier wide receiver.
Yeah. Oh, I 100% think they do, especially if it looks like the running game, which was never really the identity of the Falcons anyways. It wasn't like Devontae Freeman was this, premier player. They lucked into him being, I think, really good, but they are predominantly a throwing offense. And so of course you want to go get a number one receiver or at least another big weapon. And the thing is, you can get a receiver and still get them buying into this whole like 2 or 3 years, right? I mean, you draft somebody, he's 22, 21, 23. That's where your answer is going to be. Not these 29-year-old vets who, when they're 33, you go, man, you ready? It's game time. You've hung around, buckle up.
Yeah. Rob, fuck yourself for taking my joke and making it a serious point. That's not cool. That's not okay.
It's what I do here.
Drew, what were you saying? Sorry.
I don't really know. I think that you're absolutely right. I don't think that you can rely on signing free agents at this point in time in a rebuilding phase. I think you have to go draft. You have to go with guys that you're going to just sign for 3 years and going to have them at the end of the contract and see what they can do for a couple of years. And if you want to keep them around, do it, extend them. And hopefully by that time, something will have proven itself to be hopeful in that organization, because it hasn't. And I don't know. I don't think you could get away with sticking another big name receiver in there. I think Julio and Calvin Ridley take up that whole room more or less. So, yeah, you're kind of stuck with what you got. I hate to beat the dead horse, but.
All right. Here's a fun one that's coming up here. Another bird in the NFC. Let's talk about Philly, because I have some big time thoughts and them sliding back 6 spots. I think that was just fucking moronic. It's not like they got a big gain out of it. I mean, granted, when you put it in scale of like, all right, well, San Fran just traded up here and like gave 3 first-round picks. Like, cool. They're not getting a top 5 pick, although it was on the cusp. Like,
you're getting a 6th pick, but what Philly needs is not at 12th. Like anything they could have gotten was at 6, and now they're gambling because they need a wide receiver 1. They need cornerback help. Ugh, I mean, what the hell? Like you had Jamar Chase in your grasp, and you're like, nah, we'll go 12 and maybe go with like Rondale Moore. And then cornerback wise, are you going to try to wait until the second round to see if Asante Samuel Jr. is still sitting there? Are you going to go try to get someone earlier, get Surtain, or I can't think of his name out of Virginia Tech right now? I don't understand because it seems like they're either going to be reaching or they're going to miss out on who they want.
Yeah, and I think it's a lost cause.
Welcome to the Eagles.
And why the Philadelphia Eagles are trying to do whatever it is that they're trying to do. They've been quite a mystery for the last, again, decade or so. Since the Chip Kelly days, really, is when they started going off the beaten path for sure. I agree with you, James, 100%. I don't see the benefit of moving back into a territory where, like you said, you're either missing out on the guys that you would have had available at your previous spot or are now reaching way more than you ever would have liked to from where you're sitting. It's mind-blowing.
No, Rob, what are your thoughts before I go off again?
No, please continue. If the Philadelphia Eagles are one of those teams, I'm not even going to try to play this game of what are they thinking? Where are they going? It's an absolute mystery to me. Mm-hmm. I can't tell where their direction lies. You get all these reports coming out about whether or not they think their quarterback was the right play. It's, oh my God, it's like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube while you're blind, right? It's just so complicated.
It's just, those reports are a whole nother thing. That just doesn't make sense to me. That team was revitalized with Jalen Hurts under center. Like that, it looked like a completely new offense. Not even just offense. Everyone was playing with more life. Every single aspect of that team. And then the whole sitting thing happened the last game, which got them that 6th pick. And then now they're like, man, maybe Jalen's not the guy. You're fucking up. You are fucking up this team, and the fans hate you, Howie Roseman. You're gonna end up with,
which is such a. That's funny how that relates to the Atlanta Falcons when it comes to should we go off and get a quarterback right now. The Jalen Hurts thing, I mean, it's exactly like that. You know, a quarterback where you're totally right. It revitalized the offense. It looked really cool. Everything seemed to be flowing, and then classic Eagles. All of a sudden, he's sitting, and you're thinking, "Wait, I thought he was the answer to everything." Why in your last game would you sit him? You gain nothing. Yeah, you can gain the other, like the 6th pick. But what are you doing? Right? Like where are you at right now? What's your focus here? You guys go defense? You guys go on offense? I don't even think anyone in like the Phillies organization can even answer that question right
now. No, hell no.
I don't know. Because there's so many needs they have too beyond that. I even forgot about middle linebacker. Like who's quarterbacking the defense?
No
exactly.
Jalen Hurts.
Jalen Hurts again.
Yeah, they're actually going to bring back Nick Foles, far safety. You heard it here first.
The cloud. I think Philly is on a dangerous path. They're in a dangerous territory that they're kind of sitting in that, like, almost about to be in a full rebuild collapse. Like, I mean, they have pieces in the right spots, but if they end up drafting Jalen Waddle, and I've already been on record saying I think Jalen Waddle's a bust, but he's sitting right now, draft projections sit him right in that area. You're just drafting another guy who is explosive and fast. At some point, you need a route runner. At some point, you need a guy who's not just a slot receiver that fits into the X. At some point, you need a Jamar Chase, and you lost. You fucked up and lost. Enjoy a big losing season again, Philly. That's it. That's all I got. I'm popped on that one.
Yeah, move on. Time to talk about Detroit, baby.
Great. Let's talk. Let's talk
Detroit
about.
Doesn't make any sense to me.
It doesn't make sense to anyone. I think it's just a good time to get anger out. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously the Lions were involved in one of the biggest trades this offseason with Stafford leaving, going to LA, Jared Goff coming over to
Detroit. What a freaking awful flip for him, by the way. How do we feel about Goff in this system? How do we feel about Goff, period?
Okay, I'm not saying this just because I always like to take the opposite side of wherever Matt Stafford lands on as far as quarterbacks go. Goff, he got, man, I was more disappointed in like the Rams than I was in Goff. They get to the Super Bowl, and then the next two storylines coming out are, man, he's really dropped off. Are you kidding me? No, he hadn't. That kind of drop off was so nominal versus like the headline. Like, yeah, if he ended the year throwing 1,000 yards and 39 picks to 1 touchdown, I'd be like, yeah, you can say he dropped off. But no, there was just this panic where I'm sure Sean McVay was like, I got to win now. I got to win now. I got to win now. And this story went way beyond its actual, like the actual, order of events, because I don't think Jared Goff fell off. So as far as the system goes, probably not great, because what, is he going to throw it to Danny Amendola? Like, what's going to happen there?
Amendola's still kicking around there.
I will say off that point, and I don't think this is a surprise to anyone before I kick it to Drew, TJ Hawkinson's fantasy value just went like through the roof.
Yeah.
But
there's no one else to throw to.
Yeah.
Just to answer your original question about Goff, I don't feel particularly poorly about his abilities as a quarterback. I think he's a fine quarterback. I think that he just needs a good system to lead, and the Rams one got stale really fast. So I think that I'm confident in Goff. I am about as not confident as you can get in the Lions as a team and as an offensive system for him to lead. I think he just hate his entire existence for his tenure in Detroit.
Right. I mean, also, I don't even understand if you're gonna look at it as the Rams and just be like, man, Jared Goff really fell off. Well, first of all, no, he didn't. He had the highest percentage rating of his entire career last year. He threw for less interceptions. So actually, on a whole, he was way better than he was in 2019. Fine. But if you want to make the argument he dropped off as to whatever standards you held to your quarterback, fine. How is it that you look at Matt Stafford and go, that's the guy? That's the guy that we were hoping Goff would be. Matt Stafford's going to save the day. Are you kidding me? It feels so hypocritical.
I don't know. I mean, dude, I know you. I know you're the biggest anti-Stafford guy in the world. I don't think he's the worst fit in LA, though.
I think he is, again, a quarterback that is solid and can lead a decent offense if he has the tools and the weapons around him, which Detroit never provided outside of Calvin Johnson and Kenny Golladay, who was never there because he was hurt. I think in LA, in a new system with a new coach, with some pretty solid talent throwing the ball to, and Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods and those guys over there, I think that Stafford will be fine. I think that offense will run pretty much as it did, maybe a little bit better, just based on Stafford's experience. But it's not going to be a big swing one way or another for either of these teams.
No, and that's inherently one of the issues I have with it. Is, listen, at the end of the day, and I know, James, I'm going to say this, and you're going to be shocked. Matt Stafford is not, like, he's not so awful as I wouldn't have him. Like, I don't see how he can't be a quarterback. But you can't describe your team as it's going to be fine or it might be a little bit better. When every headline came out, they're like, this is our opportunity to make a deep playoff push. So you pretty much downgraded to an older quarterback who might be able to do the job just like a smidge better, but a smidge is not what you were lacking in order to make a deep playoff push. I feel like you needed to make a big splash in the offseason to get it like a quarterback, because the issues were not, man, we were so close. No, there's a huge gap between what you need and what Stafford's going to give you over Goff, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, they're more than a quarterback away from legitimately competing.
All right, but we're not talking about LA. We're talking about Detroit.
We're also more than a quarterback away from legitimately competing or competing at all.
They're a whole team away.
Yeah.
They're a full team plus a front office plus a coaching staff away from being a contending.
Higher NFL franchise away.
I think Matt Patricia should be quarterbacking the Lions. That's the answer.
Just
Are you kidding
bring
me? Try to stop it.
Good luck tackling fucking Matt Patricia. Blah 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 blah. Oh, dude. So Jamal going over there, Drew, your man's. How do we, or do you think he's going to eat into DeAndre Swift's stats at all?
Not particularly. I think they'll probably use him a lot the same way that Green Bay did, as kind of a change of pace. DeAndre Swift absolutely should be the lead guy that's getting the majority, if not all of the touches there. He is phenomenal in all phases of the game, except for catching every once in a while. But Jamal Williams is not a guy that you bring in to not use at all. They're going to use him a lot in short yardage situations, a lot in those power run, eke out a couple of yards kind of things. And I don't know. I just think it's funny the Lions keep taking like the third and fourth players off of the Packers depth chart and just being like, this will fix everything. This is the answer.
So next point, right? Kenny Golladay departs. There's your wide receiver one gone. Out. Another team that's going to need a wide receiver one. And if Miami doesn't take them, which I'm almost certain they will, at 6, I think Jamar Chase ends up being the wide receiver one in Detroit, which is just an awful situation for his career.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's like Drew said, that's not a Jared Goff thing. That's not a whatever. It's like just an awful organization to be a part of. I know I was a fan of an awful organization. We're now a good organization. We've made the transition into the future. I hope it doesn't happen, but realistically they need to get that wide receiver one, right? So if I'm right, and if Jamar Chase isn't there, I could see them go for a lineman again, like Slater, Vera Tucker maybe, but that would be a reach. We just kind of keep bouncing around these same 4 guys, though, that we don't know where they're going. This is, and I've said this too, this is the most unpredictable draft outside of the top 3. I really do not know what is going to happen from 4 to 32.
Even at 3, I mean, we still don't know what San Fran's planning on doing. I mean, we have some good ideas, but who the fuck knows? That whole thing has been a load of bullshit, dude. Everything about that has been a load of crap. So it's all smoke and mirrors. Who knows what they're going to do on draft day? We'll see how that goes. But 1 and 2 are pretty locked.
This is going to be, I think this is one of those drafts that I am just like super excited for.
Oh,
because usually on like drafts, you, for the most part, you have like a general idea, for the first, like, and maybe I'm overstepping here, but like for the first round, you have a general idea of where everyone's at. This is just so nonsense loaded with like talent and overabundance, where you're just kind of like, and I've never seen teams swap so many times over the course of the offseason. I mean, it's this just super complicated game of Tetris. So I'm super excited.
Yeah. Oh, it's going to be a blast. Just to actually have genuine unknowns in the draft in that first round when you're talking about the prime talent and just wondering where teams are going to go. You got a lot of teams with a lot of holes to fill up at the top of that draft. So it's going to be a lot of fun, like just a lot of talent in a lot of different areas. So best available or what you need.
Dude, it is going to be such a great weekend, and I'm going to be so excited the entire weekend. I'm going to be rock hard all weekend. I love draft time. Rob, dude, all right, Drew, I'm going to commit to us doing this right now because we've pretty much done all of our whole roundup, and now we're just going to bullshit. We're going to do a draft show this year. I'm going to commit to that. We need to get Rob on for a draft show.
Oh, yeah. I would love to be part of that. Yeah, that sounds awesome.
All right, Rob, you're canceled. Kicking you from the Zoom.
Cool. Heard.
You'll never hear from us again.
But there's just so much that all of our teams need to do, and I'm so excited to see what happens. And there's so many moving pieces. It's gonna be a fun April.
You just want to see me cry on draft day when the Packers inevitably make some asinine, stupid pick.
when they end up drafting somebody to like mow the lawn of the field.
They're going
Yeah,
to
we're
draft
gonna
Mason
use our
Crosby's
vacation
replacement in the first round. Like
29th overall.
29th
Yeah,
overall.
At least
Kicker.
you're not like a Patriots fan where all of our first round picks, Bill's like, yeah, but there are some really fancy looking 5th round picks that I'm all about. Take them first. Give me your 3 5ths. He gets the 5th and he's like, you know what? This is reaching. I'll take 7 6th, but not this year. Next year. Thank you. I'm like, great. Such fun.
It
Fair.
is nice, I will say, that the past 2-3 seasons for the Browns, they've been led by really good GMs. And friggin' Andrew Berry this year, and oh my god, I can't think of his name from the Chiefs 2 years ago. Either way, they both like found some great players, like diamonds in the rough. I'm sorry, guys. Bill Belichick, great coach, not a great GM. Drew, I don't even know who your GM is. Not good.
Brian
expecting the
Gutekunst,
Browns-
baby.
Gutekunst, that's right.
To trade Baker Mayfield this year. You heard it here first. They're trading Baker Mayfield.
Shut
Yep.
Shut your
Yep. They're gonna get Teddy Bridgewater. They're excited about that talent.
I would die. I would actually stop being a Browns fan if they traded him for Teddy Bridgewater. I'm not gonna lie to you.
So then, are you a Baker fan or a Browns fan?
I am a Browns fan, but I'm more so a Baker fan.
Okay.
The Browns are my team, but I will stand Baker Mayfield.
So if Baker went to Philly, are you now a Philly fan?
No, I'm a Baker fan in Philly.
Fair enough.
All right,
Still a
Rob.
Browns fan unless it didn't go Baker's way on how he wanted to get out of there.
Yeah, we almost ended up with Sam Darnold. Thank God. All right, Rob, you are on the clock for a minute on my go. I want you to talk as much as you want about the shape of a football. Ready?
Send it. Yeah. Let me know when.
Go.
Oh my God. I've had thoughts on this for minutes. and I've been waiting for a platform. So what I'm thinking here is shape of a volleyball. The strength and
round.
consistency of a lacrosse ball, right?
Hard.
Yep. Velcro, which I think would be great because I'm picturing getting like stuck on the jerseys or like the cleats or something, right? There's something really great there. And then you dip the gloves, the receiving gloves, in some kind of water, right? And then you send them on. Oh my God, I think it would be so good. That would separate the receivers who can catch versus those who can't, right?
Could you imagine? Okay, hold on. I'll get to that after. Go.
I'm also not opposed to a bowling ball like consistency, shape, and use.
You have 10 seconds.
10 seconds. And running out of it, worst case scenario, just start playing handball.
I can't imagine a world where a receiver in Green Bay or New England in like sub-zero temperatures has to dip their hands in water before they can attempt to make a catch.
I did not consider how weather would play into this. That's super fair. But now the question is, does that help in a certain way, right? Right? Because
No.
hear me out, right?
In what way does it help you catch a bowling ball, Rob?
Hear me out. You dip the glove in water while you're wearing it, and then you freeze your hand in the optimal catching shape, right? And then you don't have to worry about your hand getting batted down or like, you're getting your fingers jammed. No, it's in the optimal shape. Then you just got to have Aaron Rodgers is great at this. A little back shoulder fade, clean. And when will the ref be able to be like, nah, that wasn't a catch. You didn't have control. Literally, dude, my hand is frozen to the ball. Couldn't have any more control than this one moment.
So instead of a hand warmer like they wear around their waist, you're just gonna have them running around with like a rolled up moist towel, or is it like a full pool of water they have to like stick their hands in and come back out?
I mean, that's obviously
a fanny pack full of water.
It's actually just a fanny pack.
That's obviously up to the team's discretion.
Right.
But
Okay.
I would actually love if there was somebody who had to run up and down the sidelines with like a bucket of water, and the receivers would just like dip, and then like get back into formation. Oh my God. It was
You know,
so good.
Waterboy had it too good for too long. I think we need to start making them run more.
Yep. I
Um,
agree.
I see a big problem with what you're saying.
Just
uh,
one or
I mean, multiple
right.
beyond trying to throw a bowling ball.
I mean, dude, imagine how strong your quarterbacks would be. They'd be titans.
Okay, so I have a short quarterback as my favorite, like as Baker Mayfield. Imagine him trying to throw a bowling ball and smashing it off of his lineman's head.
Dude, imagine Kyler Murray trying to throw a bowling ball.
Now,
Kyler Murray doing his little baby run with a fucking bowling ball.
Obviously, we would have to look at the rules in general. I mean, go back to any sport when it first started. It wasn't perfect, right? The 3-point shot in basketball, that didn't come in till later. We can, look at what kind of gear the players would need. But then at the same time, how great would it be to see Baker Mayfield jump into the air, shot put a bowling ball into the air, crisp into OBJ's hands, game-winning touchdown, Super Bowl.
Except for his hypothermia and broken arms.
Well, every team would transition to a dome with a heated field.
Oh, okay. See, you didn't mention the multi-billion-dollar plan to dome every stadium.
Oh no, not every. They're just gonna build a really big new one right in Nebraska, right in the middle.
Oh, see, that's what I'm missing.
And every team will play there, same day, one field
at the same
time.
It'll be like when you were a kid and you showed up to the field and like you could see like the Lions and Bears are playing, but like you can see like the fucking Titans on the sideline just like sitting there waiting to come in.
Yeah.
Warming up on the side, smacking each other with bowling balls.
Yeah. Just whipping bowling balls at each other.
Again, good luck trying to have a quarterback get injured at that point because their biceps would just be steep.
Okay. There's another point, Rob. If they get tackled and the ball's underneath them, aren't they just landing on a bowling ball and shattering their ribs?
What happens when they get tackled and the ball's above them?
I'm gonna tell you what my dad told me, growing up. Tough, figure it out. You get paid millions of dollars, just learn to fall better, right? Maybe don't fall on the bowling. Also, fumbles, good luck, right? Good luck trying to scoop that out of the ground while you're getting tackled. I will say, where I will concede my point, kickoffs would just be a real bitch. Like, that would suck. And I get that.
But all NFL kickers have to have their kicking leg amputated and replaced with a bionic leg from the knee down.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
This is really coming.
Yeah, listen, I really appreciate you guys giving me the platform to talk about this because
I almost immediately regret it.
Yeah.
I don't. This needs to happen.
That's fair. Again,
no,
it doesn't have to be a bowling. It could be a lacrosse ball. It could be again, the consistency is not what's important. It's the shape. It's
what
the
about
shape.
like a candle pin bowling ball? I feel like that's a good middle ground.
See, that's dangerous because now they can like whip these things like freaking fastballs in baseball. And I don't know any receiver who can catch a 99 mile an hour, like anything. I mean, that shattering the helmet alone would be my main concern.
I mean, this is what we want, isn't it?
No, God, no.
I thought we were going complete blood sport here.
No, Rob is all about safety at this point.
Yes.
The Player Safety Commission has one hell of a job in this league.
Huge fan of safety.
Thank you for joining us today.
I was about to say, is this the last time that I will be on the podcast?
I think no, Rob. That was amazing. Thank you for joining us on Garbage Time. Rob, thank you so much for joining us, and whatever that explanation of what a bowling ball, lacrosse ball, football was.
A good time.
You know what? Thank you for having me. And I apologize that you let me talk about bowling ball football.
No, I think that needs to be a new segment is I just give you a minute every time you're on the show to just talk about whatever you want. It just has to be like a homeless guy's fever dream. It's like
You can imagine like walking through fucking Boston and some homeless guy yells at you, like, it's football, but with a bowling ball. And all the receivers' hands are frozen. It's like, all right.
All right, yeah. I mean, when you
Here's the
when you
dollar.
bullet point it like that without my expert analysis, it does seem to come off a little.
Little
Cookie.
key. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I see that now.
Anyway, you know where to find us at Boda Sports everywhere, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We're on Spotify. We're on Google Music or podcast, whatever it is. We're on Apple Music. We're
Are
on
we on
Apple
MySpace?
Podcast. We're on MySpace Podcast, the newest platform. Find us on Sports Me. Come debate us. Come fight us. Come yell at us. I've been getting a lot of flack on there recently, and I want more. I hate myself, and I need it. Stay beautiful. Drew, you got anything?
No, I don't talk at the end of these things.
I'm sorry, Drew. Did you want to close out?
No, I don't talk at the end of these things. I just said that
Yeah, but now you're talking at the thing.
because you made me.
Right. But what if I ended it with you saying something?
We don't.
Drew. 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 Stay beautiful. Why would it make me stop twice? That's so dumb. Bye, YouTube.